and get going. Can I get you to say count to 10, please?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4,
That's perfect. You've got a
7, 8.
and you're high. Good. I am talking to Hugh Howey of Wool fame. Although you've got a bunch of other books, and I want to kind of talk to you about that stuff too, because everybody wants to talk to you about wool, but there's a lot going on we could talk about. So let's just start off with something basic, though. How did you get into the brain tickle business?
That's funny you call it that. My wife's a psychologist. I feel like she's the one in the brain tickle business.
Oh, that's funny. My wife's
So,
a psychologist too.
oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe they're doing some kind of a study on it. I'm still trying to figure out what my wife is doing with me. I think I'm the subject of some major report she's working on.
No, that's just
Um,
paranoia. She's convinced me of that.
so how did I get into this? I've wanted to be a writer since I was young, but I gave up on every book I started for, decades. And then in 2009, I was at a conference and writing conference. I was covering it as a book reviewer and book editor. And this lady on a panel is the mother half of the Charles Todd team, really lit a fire under my butt. And I came home from that conference and started the first book that I finished. And that was in 2009. And I've been writing 2 or 3 novels a year ever since. And
So
just hooked on it.
you're one of those few people who actually got something good out of a writing conference. That's amazing.
Yeah, it turned me around. I really heard what I needed to hear. And, you leave those conferences with the general sense of excitement, I think, for an aspiring writer, because you see other people who are on the cusp and people who are just breaking in, people who have just got their first deal or getting published. You meet editors and agents, and small publishing house representatives. So, you leave there fired up anyway. But really, what I heard from Carol and Todd was you've got to stop thinking about writing and dreaming about it. The only thing stopping you from doing this yourself. Just sit down and write every day, and it'll happen. And I've wanted. It's like someone who wants to quit smoking so badly, but they can't. And you just need one good coughing episode to get you, disgusted enough. I really became disgusted with myself that I couldn't achieve this dream when no one was standing in my way of it. I was the only one. And that was what I came up from that conference feeling was, man, I'm not going to let myself fail. I don't care if it's a bad book. I don't care if no one ever reads it. I want to say that I wrote a novel. And that was what inspired me.
The quitting smoking analogy sounds good because it strikes me that you're getting the blackness out of you.
Well, and I've done both. So I know what it's like to go from smoking a pack a day to go to cold turkey. And so it was a very similar feeling of weakness and like, I'm in charge of this. Why can't I just say that's enough? I'm gonna do this.
Well, just before we started the show, we almost kind of got into something. I want to ask you about it because I was mentioning that sometimes guests don't want to talk about certain subjects. Usually, it's politics and religion, and it strikes me that there's so much horror fiction that isn't serious in some ways. Like with iZombie, you get incredibly gory stuff, but it's not treated comedically like a lot of horror is. It is serious stuff. There's questions of God, and like in the book I write, in one of the books I've just written, the wife is a believer and the husband is an atheist, and it's how they deal with the apocalypse. And
Sure.
I think a lot of those similar themes come up with iZombie, for instance. Do you think that there are horror writers who should be, or maybe, I don't know if the word should be, I shouldn't put shoulds on them, but I just get this feeling that there's so much horror that could explore deeper issues, sex, religion, psyche, how people deal with pressure and tragedy. And instead, it seems like it's either just gore or kind of tends to the comedic.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right to think that the word should is dangerous because it's it's up to each writer to explore what they want. My feeling is those are the things that I would want to read, but I'm probably in the minority. I think if you look at what kind of entertainment does well, the just escapism seems to be the number one reason people want to read. and that's why I try not to judge. I celebrate the 50 Shades of Grey, the Dan Brown, the Twilights, the works that other writers and editors and publishers kind of, I don't know if it's because the quality of the prose isn't up to their standards, or they're a little jealous of the monstrous sales, or what the reason is, but these works that get legions of people reading are the ones that I celebrate. And they're not the ones that I personally seek out for myself. But I guess I go the other way towards the things that appeal to me personally aren't things that I project on everyone and think, why doesn't everyone else like the stuff that I like? I feel like I'm just an oddball. The stuff that I like is unusual. Stuff I like to write might not be what most people like to read or write. And I'm comfortable with that. I think the market will dictate what people want. And if they want horror that's just there to get for shock value or for comedic effect, that's what most readers want. That's what most writers are going to be selected for.
But that's not what you're doing.
No, but I'm not. I mean, my wife laughs about this stuff. She reads on her Kindle a lot, and she says she loves when she gets to the end of a book. There's a little link there to click this to buy the next book in the series, and I don't put those in my books, and I know that I lose a lot of sales because of that. But I just want it to be this reading experience, not this. Okay, you read this, now I've got something else to sell you. I'd rather have a sense of completion, and if you want to seek out what the next book in the series is, you're welcome to do that. And so it's a mistake on a marketing standpoint. And if I was in this for the money, I would do things a lot differently. I'm doing a lot better than I have any right to do for the writing that I have out there, and I feel fortunate for it all. But when I put a book together, it's just for a reading experience that I wish was already there. And so I'm kind of writing for a very small niche, which is myself. And I've been surprised. It turns out there are hundreds of thousands of people who've enjoyed reading stuff that I feel like is missing from the market. Things that take a chance, that have depth and reward a second reading even. And those are the works that I seek out. And so when I started writing, it was the kind of stuff that I wanted to create.
It's interesting because I wonder about those readers, because I think maybe it's just a cliche that zombie lovers just seem to want gore. Maybe that's a misconception of the market, because obviously, it's interesting. You've got a warning on iZombie. If you got a weak stomach, don't read this. And it's like you've got a non-marketing strategy.
Well, what I don't want is people to, I write a lot of different genres, a lot of different styles. I write young adult space opera. I write young adult coming of age stories, regular fiction. So I don't want someone coming from one of my books and saying, well, this is, what a lot of authors do is and this is not their fault and maybe not even their wish, but there's pressure from publishers to replicate the last success. So readers can safely jump from a favorite author's book to anything else they write and be satisfied. J.K. Rowling is an example of someone who took a huge risk by writing outside that box. And so I think it's my responsibility to warn people, like, hey, just because you like my other stuff, you're probably not going to like this work. If any of this could shock you, don't read it, or read the sample, read the free sample, and because it's pretty disgusting in the first chapter. But also, I think that warning as well is there so people know it's not. I'm not doing this to lure people in and then shock them. I'm writing something that to me, that's my most personal book I've ever written, because it's dealing with my time living in New York and being there during 9/11 and losing my belief in the idea of free will, and those were all kind of tragic circumstances that I've never dealt with anywhere else. I dealt with them in kind of a brutal way, and it wasn't something that I ever wanted to publish. I only published it because people read sample chapters and they wanted the rest of the book, and it remains something that to me is pretty personal.
Is it? I joked about getting the blackness out of you, getting the blackness out of your lungs. Is that getting that darkness down on paper? Is that cathartic, or is that just another cliche?
No, it's very cathartic for me, and it's gotten but some time and distance have also helped. But I've gotten to where I can talk about it. I mean, as you know, with having a psychologist for a wife, you learn a lot about yourself. Not, I think anyone who lives with someone else learns about themselves, but this is in a very direct way where you get names for things. I had no idea that I knew what post-traumatic stress disorder was. I didn't know what it felt like or what the symptoms were. I would have thought, that it was someone just waking up thinking they're in Vietnam again and like shooting at shadows and things like that. But just the irritability and discomfort and some of the panic attacks and things that that you just think are something to hide and be ashamed of are when they're given a cause and you can start to talk about it and work through it. It's very helpful. And that book, whether it was the cause of me being able to work through it or whether it was a symptom of me working through things, it's hard to say. It's a chicken and egg thing, but I did write it at a time when I was able to start discussing more freely. It's being at the World Trade Center when all that happened and taking people, showing them back and forth and seeing dead people for the first time and things like that. It's not something that you think you'll ever talk about, but it really is kind of amazing what slowly working through things and having some distance and some time, and also realizing I've met people who were more severely affected by those events and they weren't there. I don't think you own any primal sadness by your geography and where you were in that event. I know people who were watching on TV, and in a lot of ways they had it worse because they couldn't, being there, you can kind of see what's going on and you kind of have a grip on things, and not being there for some people can be a lot worse. So I'm not saying that my pain is any worse than anyone else's, just that I had to work through it my own way.
Where were you when the towers were hit?
I was captaining a yacht that was docked in North Cove Marina, which is in part of the World Trade Center complex. It's sitting in front of Winter Garden, this glass dome. And my best friend was up visiting me that weekend, and we were actually in the top of the World Trade Center the night before because we'd gone to a Yankees game that got rained out, and on the way back we were looking for something touristy to do. Me, another captain, and both of our best friends, and so we took him to the Windows on the World restaurant and bar and had a drink and looked out the window, and that was on September 10th. And then the next morning, I was down below working on something and heard what I thought was a jet breaking the sound barrier. That rumble of the impact I thought was someone doing a flyby down the Hudson. And I thought, man, they're going to get in trouble because I felt it, rattle the boat. And then my best friend ran off to investigate, and I didn't see him until much later that afternoon after both buildings gone down. I thought he was dead. So I spent the day taking people from Manhattan to New Jersey and bringing rescue volunteers over and just going back and forth across the Hudson until the Coast Guard came and closed everything down. So cell phones would work. My mom was just up a couple weekends before and figured I was in physical harm. So, it was just, it was a long day. It was a very crazy week getting out of there and dealing with all the fallout from the events. My boss went to just a steady stream of funerals afterward because he worked on Wall Street and used to have an office in the upper floors of one of the buildings till just a couple years prior.
Wow. That interview took a little turn. Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, you brought up iZombie. You could have talked about Molly Fied and we'd be laughing about Monty Cole falling in love on Dreamnard or something.
Well, let's take a turn. Is I know you like space operas and you're a big fan of Orson Scott Card. I'm more of a Robert Heinlein Juveniles kind of guy, and I love Stranger in a Strange Land. But,
Heinlein's great.
Sorry, go ahead.
As for a body of work, I love Heinlein more than Card. Orson Scott Card for me holds a special place just because Ender's Game was such a seminal work for my childhood. But to be honest, I haven't read a lot of his body of work.
I think later on it gets pretty weird.
What's that?
I think later on some of his stuff gets kind of weird, and later on in life he's unfortunately gotten pretty
Yeah.
weird. I just read a thing, it was on Salon, and the debate was, should people boycott the movie that's coming out because of his views on gay marriage? And it might be more to the point to, I think one of the points of the Salon article was, if you believe that, then boycott the film producers and the people behind the movie, because they were the ones who were giving him money. But
Yeah, I mean, he's already gotten paid, and I know that the way those back ends work, the movie would have to make a lot of money for it to be any appreciable difference in what he earns. He's already probably got a 7-figure payout for exercising the option, and he's been getting 6-figure options, I'm sure, every 18 months for the past 20 plus years.
So it's hard to punish him, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to hurt him financially. I think it's important. Like I gave up a Chick-fil-A addiction because of my support of gay rights, and giving up smoking was easy in comparison to giving up those chicken sandwiches and waffle fries. So I believe in the power of boycotts, whether it's just for personal satisfaction.
Well, I think it was.
I don't know that not going to this movie is not really going to make a statement, except maybe to hurt the small people involved. I was just at a baseball game and thinking about when I saw how many people work at the stadium, and when the players, the millionaires, go on strike, all these people who need the vending jobs and the security jobs are the ones who get hurt, and that's sad.
That's a really good point. I have to say, I was kind of interested in Ender's Game, and then I read what Orson Scott Card wrote, and Chuck Wendig called it the "Tolerate My Intolerant" speech, and it was kind of a sore loser kind of speech, and I felt like I'm less excited about the movie now. So, but speaking of movies, I wanted to know, as a zombie author as well as the author of Wool and space operas, etc., did you see World War Z?
Just 2 days ago, in fact.
Perfect.
On the last day of our vacation.
Excellent. I want to get your reaction. What did you think about the movie and compared to the book?
So I just paused it on purpose because we're like 2 minutes from this.
And this is a long talk, isn't it?
Yeah. Let me restart Skype, and
okay.
Should I call you back?
Yeah, call me back as soon as your Skype is back up.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
Great, thanks.